Yes. Yeah.
But like the comparison, like with me and some of the other guys.
So that'd be something neat to see. The Harry Centers.
The Pirates playing in Williams. You're up next.
Here we're getting logical on everything here. Oh, what's wrong with us? Let's go to Florida. Florida Panthers, John Van Beesbrook. I got a Flyers
jersey. I haven't heard that name in forever.
Right, Beezer. I have a Flyers jersey with Van Beesbrook, but Florida, I would go John Van Beesbrook. I would have to do the 96 jersey when they lost to Colorado in the finals. I'd have to go that jersey just so I could make it, again, a Stanley Cup jersey.
You're consistent.
Well, the thing is, though, if I can make it a Stanley Cup jersey, I will.
Yeah.
If I can make it that type of jersey, I will. Yes, he lost in the finals in 4 games. Game 4 was 3 overtimes out of 1-0 loss to them. But I would go Van Beesbrook, that 96 era.
Okay. And since we're in Florida, I'm going to the Marlins. This one was the hardest one for me. Because I don't believe they've retired any numbers, despite having 2 World Series in their short history. So I just had to go with a player I enjoyed watching when they were a Marlin, and that was Dan Uggla. I mean, I got to see the Phils dominate that team a lot. He was on the Marlins when Doc threw his no-hitter against them. But he wasn't a bad player to sit and watch when they did play against the Marlins. There just wasn't a lot to choose from. So I went with Dan Uggla. Sorry, Marlins fans.
Well, it's the Marlins. What are you going to do?
I mean, and here's the thing. In the last 10 years, they've let go Stanton. They let go of JT. Like, when they do get name players, they let them go somewhere else. So it's...
Well, you got to pick who you pick. I mean,
it was tough. It was tough.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, we're going to LA.
We're going to the West Coast. So we're going with the Kings. I chose on this one either Luc Robitaille or Rob Blake. Both phenomenal players. Rob Blake, a hell of a defenseman. Luc, a hell of a forward. So I'd probably go with Luc Robitaille on that. If I had to pick between the two, but one of those two I'd go with.
Hey, and guess what I just realized while you were doing that? I forgot to add the Angels and the Dodgers to my list.
That's why we don't have nice things, Jason. That's why we don't have nice things.
Well, I can do the Dodgers right off the top of my head, and anyone who's a Dodgers fan is going to roll their eyes. I would get a Chase Utley jersey.
Why did I see that coming? Why did I see that coming? I saw that one coming.
Oh God, that was too easy.
And you're right. A lot of players a lot of people will roll their eyes at that one. You're right.
Actually, no. There was a Dodger I loved watching. He was a catcher. His name was Russell Martin. I would probably get, if it wasn't a Chase Utley jersey, I would get a Russell Martin a jersey because he was a really good catcher, fun to watch. So final answer Russell Martin. Non-serious answer Chase Utley.
You still probably get an Utley jersey. That's a Dodger.
A bunch. So I don't need another one, nor do I need one of him from a Dodger. But
oh, that's funny. That's funny. So we're going to Minnesota on this one. Minnesota Wild. I picked Marian Gaborik. one, Minnesota, it was kind of hard to pick with Minnesota because they're not a long-standing franchise. But Marian Gaborik was drafted by them, and basically he was there for them. He was the Wild when he was there. So that's why I went with him, just for that reason, because he's been there almost since the beginning of the Wild franchise. I mean, Wild was founded in 2000. He was drafted in 2000, so he was there for the whole, so he was there at the very beginning. But I thought he was just a great player, just a great all-around player to begin with. And I do like the Wild jersey to begin with, but
it's a nice jersey. Yeah,
it is,
and especially when they do the one with the North Stars colors.
Yeah, the retro. Yeah, the retro.
All right, so since we have to double back for me to Los Angeles again, which really it's Anaheim, but
close enough.
This is probably the most recent player outside of Cabrera, Mike Trout. He's Mr. Angels. He's been since he's been drafted.
I was gonna say
he's a PA guy. I think he secretly wants to be a Philly, hence why he was going to sign with them when he was a free agent. But you're not going to turn down $340 million for 13 years. Can't fault him. I hope he's healthy enough and he can be the type of player that MLB wants him to be. But if I'm thinking of the Angels, even though he's a modern player, he's the guy for me to pick for the Angels. Because I can't have Nolan Ryan on here 3 times.
Well, also with the Angels, he's the first person you think of, too, even just in general.
Well, him or Ohtani. But I don't believe Ohtani's going to be an Angel too much longer. I think he's going to go somewhere. Probably wearing pinstripes of a navy dark blue color. Anyway, up to you to
let's go to Montreal. So I picked Patrick Waugh, or as Americans would probably say his name, Patrick Roy.
Patrick Roy.
I picked him
like watching that there, Patrick Roy.
He was almost a pick for Colorado, being he won 2 Stanley Cups there, but I had to go where he first started, back to Montreal. Where he won 2 cups.
Episode, he was I expected you to pick him for Colorado.
So, he started his rookie career there, and he's won 2 Stanley Cups for Montreal. Of course, though, he did basically say screw off to the Montreal management when they didn't pull him after a shellacking. And that was the last game he's ever played in Montreal, and then got traded to Colorado, where he went on to a better career. Winning 2 more Stanley Cups, another Conn Smythe. So Patrick Waugh for Montreal. I could have went with John LeClair, but Patrick Waugh.
Guess I'm up next, aren't I? This one I think is going to be the controversial pick on my list. And this is strictly just because they are someone who I enjoyed watching. And I gotta be honest, I kind of wish we would have seen what he could have did more had it not been for the injuries, and that's Prince Fielder. He was almost my pick for the Tigers, but I decided to go with him for the Brewers. The dude could play. He was a big dude. Like, he gave us Husky boys some hope, man. But he was a heck of a ball player. And
he was.
And it's a shame his career ended early because of injuries, because I think he had a lot more to give had he been healthy, and I think he would have had a hell of a career. and we'll just never know, sadly.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, he was. I mean, yeah, he was a great player. Absolutely. Yeah, who knows what it, what more he could have brought.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Best I could come up with. So
We're heading to Nashville. I picked Pekka, who was a goalie for Nashville. It's one of those teams where Nashville hasn't been around as long as a lot of other teams. I mean, they've only been around since '98, but Pekka has been a Predator all his career.
yeah,
He was drafted in '04, and he actually, I think he is the only player on the Predators to have his number retired. Yes, he's the only player in Nashville history to have his number retired since Nashville came into existence.
yeah.
Now, I could have went with Kimmo Nieminen. Kimmo Timonen, because he used to play for the Flyers. He came from Nashville because he was drafted to the Kings, but he played in Nashville. I could have went with him, but from a goalie standpoint, I'd choose Pekka.
Okay. Where am I at? I'm at Minnesota.
Yep, we're going to Minnesota for you.
I'm going with Kirby Puckett. Late Kirby Puckett.
I would have guessed that one because when you think Twins, that's who you think.
I thought about Bert Blyleven because he was a fantastic player for them. But I saw Kirby play more because Kirby played further into my lifespan as a kid than Bert Blyleven did.
Makes sense.
Kirby was kind of a shitbag person.
Don't sugarcoat it.
Well, I mean, it's not, anything unknown. I mean, when there's an article written about you called "The Rise and Fall of Kirby Puckett," it's not a good thing.
Not really,
but he was very important to that Twins team, to that franchise, to them winning the World Series. He's a 2-time World Series champion, MVP. He's a Hall of Famer. To me, he's the guy to pick. And I, like I said, I saw him a lot more than Bert Blyleven, who was a fantastic Minnesota Twin.
No, I mean, I would have went with Kirby Puckett because that's the first thing that pops into my head with that. All right, so let's head to New Jersey.
All right.
So this was another one torn between, but I went with Scott Stevens.
So this surprises me because you hated Stevens.
I hated him because
and Brodeur was such a fantastic goalie.
See, I hated them because they were so dominant, but I love them because they were great players.
He was a badass.
He was. And the fact that he was a solid player that played his position of defense extremely well. So as you said, I'm a hockey fan. I hate Stevens, but I love him as an actual player. Just like Brodeur, I hate it going against him. I hate to watch the Flyers go against him because I knew Brodeur was just going to shut him down because that was typical Brodeur. Just like Stevens shutting down opposing players. He was just that much of a dominant defenseman. And that's why I just went with Scott Stevens.
No, makes sense.
Now, I don't know what jersey I would get if I would do the 95 Devils, since they won the Cup in 95, or if I would do their later jerseys.
Well, I mean So the jersey they wore from 92 to 2007 is the jersey they won their 3 Stanley Cups with.
Yeah, but I mean,
So your whole thing is you keep going back to, if I get one, it's going to be so I can have the Stanley Cup patch and I can have this. So it would just be that 92 to 2007 jersey. You would just have to pick 95, 2000, or 2003 for the patch.
which I'd probably go with the first one, just because the first one's always the most special one of any Stanley Cup player. So I'd probably just go with the first one, the 93, the 95 patch, if anything.
No, makes sense.
Because the Devils jersey you really can't change too much. Because it's all this, the only thing you can change is really the color scheme of them. But what's funny though is he was not always a Devil. That's the funny part.
Because he was just known as a Devil.
Yeah, because he was drafted by the Capitals, played for the Blues, and finished out his career as a Devil. Because he only had 1 year with the Blues, but had several years with the Capitals.
Right. All right. Well, I'm heading to New York. New York, it's a hell of a town. So with the Mets, it's Mike Piazza. That's the only answer for me for a Mets jersey. He's a PA guy. He was literally my favorite non-Phillies catcher to watch. I loved watching Mike Piazza. I'm a Mike Piazza fan. I will own it. Even though he was a filthy Met and a Dodger, he was fun to watch. He was a power hitter, decent catcher, all-around good dude. Still lives in the Philly area.
He's from Norristown.
Yeah. So I mean, I always liked Mike Piazza. So
for the
Mets.
For the Mets, that makes sense. Just because when you think Mets, that's one of the names that comes to your mind. It's just, yeah. So let's stay in New York. Let's go with for the Rangers, I picked Mike Richter. Because he was a fantastic goalie. He basically, he won, in my opinion, he definitely backstopped the Stanley Cup for the Rangers. But no, I had to go with the goalie because I could have picked several other players like Brian Leetch or even Messier or even Gretzky because he played for the Rangers for a while. But definitely, I'd definitely pick Mike Richter.
You weren't going to go with Sean Avery?
No.
I had that in the chamber just waiting for the moment. So
I figured so. That's a big, fat no. That's a huge, fat no.
I had to. I'm sorry.
No, you're not. You are not sorry whatsoever.
And neither was he.
No. Now, funny enough is Mike Richter was also a Pennsylvania native. So, there you got Piazza from New York, who's a Pennsylvania native. Richter who played for New York, Pennsylvania native. Funny how that worked out.
Yeah.
But no, definitely not Sean Avery. No. Don't get me wrong, some of his interviews were kind of comical. But no.
Well, he knows how those kids like them sloppy. So.
God, I knew that was coming. I knew that it was.
Not only did I work in a reference to his most infamous interview, I worked it into a Sandler reference.
Yeah.
I killed two birds with one stone in that one.
Oh, geez. So let's stay in New York.
All right. So this is the only player on my list I've never seen play as they were alive. This is more because I've grown up knowing of this player, and because he was my dad's all-time favorite player. So I'm going with Thurman Munson for the Yankees. So Thurman was a 2-time World Series champion, a 7-time All-Star, AL MVP, AL Rookie of the Year, 3-time Golden Glove, one of the very few Yankees captains. And he died at the age of 32. He spent 10 years with the Yankees. I've heard about Thurman my entire life. And to me, he's the guy I would have to get. Now, granted, the Yankees don't put names on their back, but I would get a number 15 jersey because I've known of him my entire life. To the point, my dad is such a Thurman Munson fan. I got for Father's Day a few years ago for him a 1978 replica World Series ring for him. And it was a stadium giveaway that they only gave out to season ticket holders the year they gave it out.
Wow.
I mean, it would be like, I couldn't imagine being 19 and my favorite baseball player dying right after they win a World Series. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
that's unfathomable. So I can only imagine what my dad went through being a Yankees fan at that age. I was going to go with Jeter, but I felt like Thurman was the right one to go with in this situation.
Well, with that one, there's a lot of picks you could have done, but no, you're right. It was, yeah.
This isn't like the kid at the Bears game saying Ron Hextall when Hextall retired well before the kid was born. This is a little different.
Yeah, you basically through your dad's eyes or his
right.
His memories
his
of
fandom.
them. Fandom. There you go. Perfect. But yeah, no, I would agree with that one just for that. But yeah, no, that was funny. That game, that was it. That was funny. Who's your favorite hockey player? Ron Hextall. Who's your favorite Bear? Ron Hextall. What? Yeah, it was funny. The whole arena.
Hershey became Philadelphia very quickly that night.
Mm-hmm. It was hilarious.
It was great. I got to be honest. That poor kid. He's probably like, if he was 8 then, he's probably 28 now, and it was probably the worst night of his young life. All right, we are going to Ottawa.
For Ottawa, I picked Daniel Alfredsson because that's the first name that came to mind for Ottawa. He was drafted in Ottawa, played majority of his career there. That was just the pick to do.
Okay.
Because he spent, I think it was 1 year in Detroit, 1 or 2 years in Detroit, I think it was. 1 year in Detroit. But he was mainly Ottawa his whole career. And that's the first name that comes to mind when it comes to Ottawa Senators.
One of the 3 players to have his number retired for that team.
Mm-hmm.
And one of 2 from the current franchise.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, just Daniel Alfredsson's definitely the one that definitely comes to mind. And we are heading to where? Oakland?
Yeah, and I'm changing my answer because I went with the answer I have written in was Dennis Eckersley, which I think he was, he's kind of the guy who essentially created the closer position as we know it today. And I'm not taking any credit away from him. He's the man when they had that run in the 80s. But I got to be honest with you, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. To this day, when I think of the Athletics, I think of one player, and it's not Reggie Jackson, and it's not Dennis Eckersley. I got to go with Jose Canseco. I have to. He was one of the Bash brothers, man.
I just find it funny how all of a sudden
athletics when I was a kid.
I just find it funny. It's like, I have to go with this guy. I'm changing my name. I'm changing my pick.
Also, his name is referenced in the freaking Ninja Turtles movie. Jose Canseco bat? Tell me, you didn't pay money for this.
Yeah. God, it's been how long since I watched that movie? Oh, it's been so long.
Really? Because I think we might watch that once a month at this house.
I can't remember the last time I even watched that movie. I can't remember. It
still holds up.
I can't remember. Oh, that's
and
funny.
You know, he still plays amateur baseball.
Really?
Yes, he plays in 35 plus leagues in California. So for all the crap he gets, the guy still loves baseball because he still plays it. He can't. I mean, there's a difference between not being able to let it go and trying to play at a professional level. This guy's just playing for fun because he loves to play. I can't.
Hey,
I can't knock that.
No, you can't. Cannot knock that whatsoever. That you cannot.
So, sorry, Dennis Eckersley. I had to go with Jose. I went with my gut, not my head on that one.
So off to Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh Penguins. I went with Mario Lemieux. I could have went with Jaromir Jagr, wrong Tudnut, but I went with Mario. Just because when you think Penguins, that's one of the first names you think of is Super Mario. Now, Jason, I know you have another name for him.
We're not going into that.
No, we're not. But no, I think Super Mario when I think Pittsburgh. I don't think Crosby. I don't think that. I think Super Mario.
And that's not taking anything away from those teams, but I mean, he was the man for a long time.
Exactly. I mean, he fought cancer, came back, and still played.
And here's another thing about Lemieux.
His size.
Not only was he
was a big guy, but he played like he was a small guy. He had talent. He had finesse. He had all that, but for a big guy.
Well, I was going to go off the ice. He was invested in the community of Pittsburgh.
He saved the Penguins, basically.
He wasn't just a player who came, played in the city, and then would go live somewhere else. Does he still live in Pittsburgh? I mean, he really became a member of the community. He was more than just a player. He was invested in the city beyond just playing.
Well, not just that. He bought the Penguins. So he was a lot invested in the city.
But to me, I mean, being that he cared so much about the team and the city, that goes even further for me than just being a player. I mean, he was someone who gave everything and then some to the team.
Well, yeah, I mean, he definitely, not just as a player, but he saved the team basically from going out of Pittsburgh. He basically kept them there. On top of that, he won 2 as a player and 3 as an owner. So he made Pittsburgh a dominant team.
Yeah.
Not just as a player, but as an owner. So I'd go with Mario, 92 or 93 jersey. One of the Stanley Cups that they won. Or I'm sorry, 91, 92.
91, 92.
Yeah, sorry. But 91, 92, one of those patches.
Yeah, makes sense. Where did I leave off at?
Let's stay
I'm
in Pittsburgh.
in Pittsburgh.
We're staying in Pittsburgh.
I got to go with Kutch. I liked Andrew McCutchen well before he was a Philly. If you don't believe me, you can do the homework and scroll through my freaking Facebook posts during the All-Star games that he was in, where I just spoke glowingly about him and how he was being wasted in Pittsburgh. Kutch was and could, due to injuries and age, he's not the player that he was. But when he was at his peak, he was phenomenal, and he was a lot of fun to watch. When I say he was my favorite player to watch who wasn't a Philly, he legitimately was a player I looked forward to watching play. I love that he signed a 1-year deal with the Pirates to bookend his career and to wrap it up as a Pirate. That's the only way it should be for him. He did stints in San Francisco and in New York, and he had a few years here with the Phils. And he was a Brewer last season. All-around good dude, great for clubhouses, fantastic player. I loved watching him. Andrew McCutchen would be the guy I'd get a Pirates jersey for.
I agree with that. Yeah. Because Pirates, that's one of the players you think of as him. Definitely for sure of that. Let's head to San Jose for the Sharks. Owen Nolan.
You just spoke about him.
Yep. And he's the first person I think of when it comes to the Sharks because of just he's always played for the Sharks for a good amount of his career. I mean, he's played for the Nordiques, the Avalanche, the Leafs, the Coyotes, the Flames, the Wild, but he's a Shark.
Yeah.
He's when I hear San Jose Sharks, he's the first one that comes to mind. So that's my pick on that one. What's funny though is he came over from when the Nordiques went to Colorado, but got traded the year they won Colorado won the Stanley Cup.
Guess I'm up next, aren't I?
Are you sure the other guy's not up next?
Yeah, it's a long day, but it's not that long. All right, so we're gonna stay in California. We're going over to San Diego, and there's only one guy for me, and it's Tony Gwynn. Freaking one of the greatest hitters of all time. He was another one of those guys invested in the team and city he played in. He regularly took less money to remain in San Diego than to pursue more money and go somewhere else. 8-time batting champion, 15-time All-Star, 5-time Gold Glove winner, 7-time Silver Slugger. Number retired with San Diego. He's in their Hall of Fame. He's in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. For a very long time, for almost 20 years, he was the San Diego Padres.
Makes sense.
And unfortunately, he passed away in 2014 due to cancer.
Never fun.
And I believe he also could have played collegiate basketball on a scholarship and chose to go into the MLB draft.
Interesting.
I could be wrong about that, but I definitely know he had a scholarship for basketball and chose baseball over it. I just don't know if he went to college for baseball or if he went into the draft. It's because it's kind of fuzzy on that for me. But fantastic baseball player and hitter. Barely ever struck out too, and did not draw a lot of walks. He always made contact. So you are on deck, my friend.
So the team hasn't been around long for who he currently plays for. When I say not long, I mean the team was only founded in 21, the Seattle Kraken. But if I had to get a Kraken jersey, I would get Philipp Grubauer. And the reason why I would get him, he was a Hershey Bear.
Makes sense.
He was also a Reading Royal.
Makes more sense.
So the fact that he worked his way up from the ECHL, which is below the American Hockey League, to where he's at now with the Kraken, I'd go with him. Just because he was a Bear, he was a Royal, he was a Pennsylvania player. Played for those two. Even it was for a short time, because I know he was back and forth with the Bears between 2012 and 2015. He was back and forth with them. Stayed up in Washington for basically stayed in the NHL after those years. Whether he stayed with Washington for a good couple of years, got traded to Colorado, and went to Seattle. So I'd go with Grubauer. Stay on the West Coast.
Yeah, man, I don't feel great about this one, and it's not because this player wasn't a great player. It's more just because I refuse to pick the person who I should pick. I picked Will Clark. I mean, his number's retired. He's a member of the Giants Wall of Fame. Heck of a ball player. He won an MVP as with the Giants. It really just comes down to I didn't want to pick the guy who everyone would think I should pick because fuck that guy.
Come on, people are on the edge of their seats here.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying his name.
Oh, leave him in suspense.
If they follow baseball or sports in general, they know who I'm talking about. And it isn't Gabe Kapler. I'm just letting you know now it's not Gabe Kapler.
Oh, that's funny. That is hilarious.
I can literally see Brad listening to this and just rolling his eyes right now. To the point that if he does listen to this, I know I'm going to get a message at this point where he's listening to it.
That's funny. If he does, you got to let me know.
I absolutely.
It'd be a good laugh. It'd be a good laugh. Oh, man. That's funny. So off to St. Louis. I had a couple for this one between Keith Tkachuk.
Clearly.
Well, Blues had some great players on their team. Between Keith Tkachuk, Brett Hull, Al McGinnis, Chris Pronger. I mean, I have a Chris Pronger Flyers jersey, but I would get probably a Chris Pronger Blues jersey.
Is that your final answer?
Sure, we'll go with that.
All right.
We'll go with Chris Pronger as my final answer. I mean, I could get Grant Pronger. I could get Grant Fuhr too, because he played for St. Louis. But I'd go with Chris Pronger.
Chris Pronger, cover athlete of the greatest hockey game ever made. NHL Hits 2003.
And the way he played it fit. When he hit you, you got hit by a train.
Which it will be delivered to me sometime next week, for the record.
Because, somebody ordered it.
What ticks me off, so...
Oh, here we go.
I mean, this was a text discussion between me and you, and it was something that ended up getting brought up in the Randy's chat for my other show. But freaking John Boy, I love John Boy, and they make great videos. But I was so crestfallen when I saw that they started doing a bunch of hits videos and proclaiming it as the greatest hockey game of all time, When we've already done it, but I know there's no way that they've listened to what we talk about. But I know that's why it's harder now to find a good copy of Hits 03. So when I did find a good one, I had to jump on it and just order it right away because I don't know if it's going to be left or not.
I don't know what copy of Hits I have.
You said you have 2002 and Pro for the Wii, well, the GameCube, but on the Wii.
Yeah, I gotta find those. See what I actually have.
Well, I have 03 coming for the PlayStation 2. Now I just got to go up to the attic and find my memory card.
If you have it.
Oh, dude, I'm really hoping I have it because I don't want to have to play that game all the way through again to get all the frickin' unlockables.
Right.
Because you had to, man, if you wanted to unlock all the classic jerseys, you had to play
so many games. So many games
as each team. Like, you gotta, if you want the 1968 Pittsburgh Penguins jersey, you gotta play 25 games as the Penguins. And if you want the Robo Penguin, you gotta win 5 games. Or if you want the original 6 Toronto Maple Leafs, you gotta win franchise mode. And it's like, shit. And I put in the work to have those 20 years ago. I don't want to do it again.
We all did, yeah. Me and you both did.
And nor do I want to do it now as a dad with very limited time.
Right. So we're off to Seattle.
Are we off to Seattle? Yeah, we
Again.
are. This one, there's literally no one else. Literally, I mean, there is. I could have went with Ichiro. I could have went with Randy Johnson again. I wasn't going to go with A-Rod. But to me, the only answer is Griffey Jr. You got to go with Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah. No,
I mean, unfortunately, he's the Dan Marino of baseball because he never got the big one. But
yeah,
hands down, one of the all-time greats in baseball.
No,
Nike still sells his shoe.
I agree with that. Definitely agree with that.
So, there's nothing else to add. I mean,
yeah.
If you don't know who Ken Griffey Jr. is, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast.
Who is he?
Because you might be the home of sports talk for everyone, but freaking everyone should know who Ken Griffey Jr. is at this point.
Well, I did like how during the Field of Dreams game, they had him and his dad do it.
I always liked how when he played for Mr. Burns' nuclear power plant softball team, he got gigantism from sipping the nerve tonic that Mr. Burns gave him.
Oh, yeah, I remember that when he was on that.
That is all hands down my all-time favorite Simpsons episode.
You know, honestly, I cannot remember the last time I watched The Simpsons.
I mean, I still watch the old episodes. I just don't watch new episodes.
I can't remember the last time I even watched The Simpsons.
But
let's head to Florida.
Let's head back to Florida.
We'll go with Tampa Bay Lightnings. I picked Martin St. Louis. I could have picked Vincent LeCavier, but I picked Martin St. Louis just because he was a small guy and did great things in St. Louis. In Tampa. Winning a cup in 2004.
Which you got to see and touch in person.
Yep. When Jay Feaster brought it back to the town he was from, which is where you live, and I live 10 minutes from.
Well, I had band practice that day because we had a show coming up, so I wasn't there.
I would have skipped it just because of
I have the shirt. I have the Jay's Day shirt. And it was the only time 90% of the people in this area gave a crap about hockey. But
Pretty much. So I went St. Louis for that team, for Tampa Bay. I'll probably go with the 04 patch for that one. Because that's the only cup he had, but
yeah, and they didn't have an alternate.
No, they didn't.
But I gotta be honest. Those jerseys, they look so sharp to this day. The black with that navy or that royal blue with the white and the silver, it's just a fantastic look. And they just haven't had anything since then that looks as good. They're almost too plain now.
I mean, I like how they try to do with the retro jersey from for the 96 to 99 third jerseys, where it looks like the rainstorm.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm just saying, like, their current jersey that they've won a cup since then with these jerseys, but they're just plain blue. They're just white. There's nothing that really pops. Whereas those from the early years to when they won the cup in 04, those are fantastic looking jerseys.
No, I agree. Yeah, I definitely get, of course, that one with everything. I mean, just for that. So let's head to St. Louis for you.
Ozzie Smith. There's clearly a lot of other people I could pick for the Cardinals, but Ozzie Smith was a fun player. I mean, who else did backflips running onto the field?
Players do that now, they'd probably break something.
The guy who recently was almost signed to the Giants and the Mets and then back to the Twins couldn't do it because he would break something.
At that point, yeah.
Ozzie was a fantastic fielder. He was a character. He brought a liveliness and energy to the game that a lot of guys do now, but didn't at that time. That's why he's my pick. He was just always a lot of fun to watch.
Hey, makes sense. I mean, that's with that, yeah, absolutely.
And I think you're going to have a few more to. Oh, I guess we're kind of on the same amount here, so that's good. All right, you're up.
So, where are we at? I'm lost.
You're
Toronto.
Up in Toronto.
Yeah, so let's go to Toronto. So I got Matt Sundin, who that's the first name that pops into my head with the Toronto Maple Leafs, because he spent majority of his career there. He spent a few years, he spent about 4 years in Quebec and 1 year in Vancouver before retiring. But that's the first thing that pops into mind for Toronto.
All right.
So, I mean, Toronto has a long history. I could have picked many names, but
kind of like me with the Yanks to some degree.
Yeah, because Toronto was part of the original six, but had to pick that. Had to pick Sundin.
That makes sense. Well, I'm going to Tampa, and I think this one to me is a no-brainer. He was on the Rays World Series team. I think he might even be the longest tenured Ray that they ever had, because he was with them for almost 10 years. I'm going with Evan Longoria. He's still playing. He's playing for the Giants. But to me, I mean, I still think of him when I think of the Rays.
Yeah.
He was a fantastic player. Obviously, he was part of that World Series run where they lost to the Phils. Sorry about your luck there. I wasn't expecting you to laugh. That threw me off. But I think he's the right guy, in my opinion, to have a Rays jersey for.
Yeah,
And I think he might be. I'm sorry, he's now a Diamondback. He signed a 1-year deal with the Diamondbacks for $4 million about 2 weeks ago. But I think he might be the only guy still playing who was in that '08 World Series.
Would not have thought that one. Would not have thought that one.
Yeah, I think he's the last one out of both teams. You're up next.
So for Vancouver, I picked Pavel Bure. He spent a good amount of his time with Vancouver, spent a couple of years in Florida and New York, but for Vancouver, first thing that pops in my mind is, besides those ugly, ugly, ugly jerseys.
The V.
Yeah, the puke jerseys. I would pick him. I'd pick Pavel Bure. No, I would not get the jersey from
I wasn't
hell.
asking because I don't think he wore it with them. If he did, it was a throwback.
I would imagine it would be a throwback because he was drafted in.
I'm surprised you didn't call it a throw up, honestly.
I almost did.
I'm a little let down. I got to be honest with you.
Sorry, my life.
Sorry.
He was drafted in '89, and they stopped it at '85 was the last year for him. So he lucked out. He lucked out on that. So yeah, I'd pick Pavel Bure.
All right. I'm going to Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Yeehaw. And this is the second appearance of Nolan Ryan. Yeah. He plays such a big role in that team beyond just a pitcher because he's involved in the front office, and he's, again, another player who's deeply invested in the area the team is in. It's more than just the team for him. So, again, no brainer, Nolan Ryan for the Rangers. It's where he finished up his career. It's where he's still involved in. That's awesome.
Hey, that makes sense on that one. Because, I would definitely pick the Rangers for him as well. Just because that's one of the first names I think of when I hear the Rangers of baseball. So let's go to Vegas. I mean, the Golden Knights only been around since 17, so they really haven't had a long list of players that have been around a lot. But if I had a choice, I'd probably go with Marc-Andre Fleury.
Okay.
Because he went to them during the team
expansion draft.
Yeah, the expansion draft. That's it. That's what I'm looking for. The expansion draft. And he was there for quite some time. Come on, computer, work. He was only there for 4 years before he went to Chicago. But in that first year he was there, they went to the finals. That's where they lost to Washington.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, I'd still pick, for the Knights, I'd go with Fleury, the flower.
All right, I'm heading my way over to Toronto. No, I am not picking Joe Carter, you shifty sons of bitches listening to us. I'm going with a former Philly, one of the truly great former Phillies, but he was also very great for the Toronto Blue Jays as a pitcher, and that would be Roy Halladay.
Yes.
The late Roy Halladay. There were plenty of other players, including Joe Carter, I could have went with, because at the end of the day, it isn't Joe Carter's fault that he hit that home run in Game 6. That's just bad management on the Phil's end.
Are you going to be okay?
I'm okay. No, seriously, I make a lot of jokes about it, but Joe Carter was a heck of a player, and those guys earned their World Series trophy in '93, even if it was heartbreaking for a very young me to withstand. Roy Halladay is probably the greatest pitcher I've ever watched. Not just because he was a Philly. I got to appreciate him more because he was a Philly, but I always knew he was a great pitcher when he was with the Blue Jays. And he's someone who I had a Phillies jersey of. Him and Utley were the only guys from that era I had jerseys of.
Does his son still play for Penn State?
No, his son does not.
Oh. I thought he did.
It's kind of tough to play baseball in a cold weather town if you want to go further with your career. You need to play more than just in springtime and summer. Yeah, Doc's one of the greatest pitchers I've ever watched. So, I mean, to me, it'd be stupid to not pick him.
Well, it's one of the Toronto just seems to be, when you think of the Blue Jays, he is one of the names that you think of right off the bat.
Yeah.
So
you're up next.
Let's go to Washington. I was torn between this one. Shocking. Between Dale Hunter and Olaf Kolzig.
Oh.
Which one was the for the Kolzig?
Yeah, that's a name that's a name I have not heard forever.
Ole the goalie, yep.
You had a poster of him.
At one point, yes I did.
When he was with Las Vegas.
What?
Didn't you have a poster of him?
Not when he was at Vegas. No, not with Vegas.
I thought you did.
Not with Vegas. It was a Washington poster.
Oh. All right. Well, I knew you had a poster of him.
Yeah, no.
No,
because he only played for the Capitals and Tampa in the NHL.
No, I meant in the IHL when he was in the minors.
He never played in the IHL. He played in WHL, ECHL, the ECHL for the Hamilton Road Admirals, and then the AHL for the Baltimore Skipjacks when they were around. And then Rochester Americans.
Another name I haven't heard in a long time.
What's that?
The Skipjacks.
No. He played for the Portland Pirates, and then played for the Capitals until 08-09. Then he played for the Lightning for a couple of games. I'll probably go with Kolzig just because the goalie, and why not? So, yeah, like I said, Olaf Kolzig, just because, again, I could have went Dale Hunter. That's who I originally had, but nah, I'll go with a goalie. I'll go with Olaf Kolzig. So let's stay in Washington. Since Jason loves Washington so much.
Yeah, I got it. And to me, another no-brainer. I think when you think the Nationals, you think of this guy and only this guy. I'm literally, John, I'm only doing this to fuck with you. I got to be honest. I literally, inside baseball, I literally sent David a message that said, should I fuck with John on this one?
He did. He actually sent me a message, and I just sat just like chuckling under my breath until he said something.
Because I know he'd appreciate this.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I got to go with Bryce Harper. No, I'm fucking with you. No, I'm going with Mr. National. I'm going with Ryan Zimmerman. Nationals lifer. He's been with them since the beginning. Literally the only player to have a number retired by the Nats. I mean, do they have some players from Montreal? Yes. But he's the only player from the Nats to have their number retired, and deservedly so. He's Mr. Nat.
He was drafted by him. So yeah, he's been there since the beginning of his career.
Since the beginning of the team. So there isn't a better player to have to represent the Nats if I was going to have a jersey collection than Ryan Zimmerman.
Not a Bryce Harper?
No. I just had to do that to mess with John, because I bet you he's going to listen to this, because I know he will. And I can just hear him motherfucking me until I actually say Ryan Zimmerman, because he knew I was picking Zimmerman. So I said to him, I reached out to him. I'm like, this is who I'm picking because I think this is the only guy that makes sense. He's like, yeah, it is. I go, I thought about Worth, but I kept going back to Zimmerman. He's like, yeah, you could do Worth. He's like, but Zimmerman's the guy. So.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I can see you doing that, though, just for the hell of it. Let's head to Winnipeg.
All right, let's head to Winnipeg.
So for this one, I picked Teemu Selanne. Some people think for him as a Duck. I think him as a Winnipeg Jet of the 90s. Not the current Winnipeg Jets, but
right.
The old school Jets.
The classic Jets.
Yes. That's who I picked for him for this one. Just because of that. Because trying to think here, I think he was drafted by the Jets in '88. So that's got to go with him.
All right, and I have one team that doesn't exist that I felt I needed to include because I would absolutely buy an Expos jersey or cap. But I went with Gary Carter. He's also another sadly deceased player, one of the greatest catchers of the game. I almost went with him fleetingly before I settled officially on Piazza, because he was a great catcher for the Mets as well and was part of their World Series team. But he bookended his career in the Expos. He's one of the few players in the Hall of Fame as an Expo. So if I was to buy an Expos jersey, he would be the guy whose name I would have on the back of my jersey.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, there we go.
That was a long list.
And if you stayed with us this long, we applaud you.
Yes. Yeah, because some of these names are definitely toss-ups, but hey, we made it through.
Oh man. Yeah, so let's I guess wrap this up. There's no commercials this episode. Although I think you could probably split this into 3 parts for YouTube.
I just gotta figure out how.
Yeah.
Since we just kept rambling on through.
But
we'll figure
real
it out.
Quick, our code is still good at Fans Idea. So if you want to go to Fans Idea and use our code, you can still use NASPod to get 10% off your order. But we also have an affiliate link now for Fans Idea, and that's fansidea.com/NASPod, NASPOD, and that will take you to Fans Idea. And you would also get a discount using that. Either way, you have 2 discounts from us that you can use at Fans Idea. That's the biggest news. We did some changes with our Fans Idea affiliation codes. You can find me every other week when I'm not doing NASPod on the Rock and Randy's Pro Wrestling Outlaws podcast. That show has been doing gangbusters, and it is not safe for work, and part of it is me. I've made some really interestingly humorous statements in the last episode. Can't get into it right now, but we've been having a lot of fun with that show. We've had a lot of really awesome guests, and there's a lot of interesting things that are right around the corner that I can't get into yet, but I think this is going to be a big year for the Randy's pod. Last episode, transitioning into the next plug, last episode, Frankie from Broken Kayfabe was on the show with us, and we had a lot of fun talking about our earliest pro wrestling memories, which that led to a lot of funny stories about all of us as kids. Which you can't tell any of those on here. I do believe there was a new episode of Broken Kayfabe with Frankie and Ariel that was just posted this week. Can't say enough great things about Frankie. He's a tremendous person. Puts on a really great show with Broken Kayfabe, really in depth with whomever guests they get. I was on it with Mike and Bill from the Randy's podcast before we even launched the Randy's podcast. So check both those out wherever you get your podcasts. Next week, by the time some of you might listen to this, it'll already be next week. We're going to be doing our big Royal Rumble episode where we're not talking about the current Rumble. We're talking about the past Rumbles, like probably the first 5 years of Royal Rumbles we're going to be talking about. And it's going to be a lot of fun, like our Survivor Series episode. I don't have any other plugs because some shows have kind of ceased to exist that I didn't know ceased to exist until recently. So I had to pull some plugs that I would normally do.
It happens.
It does. So thank you for joining us for episode 61 of the Not Another Sports Podcast. You can find us online through our Linktree account that is always in the description of the show and on YouTube. Just click that link. It'll take you to all of our various social media sites, our store, our webpage, our YouTube. Go to our YouTube and watch our clips. They've been doing pretty well from what you've been saying. We've really hit our stride with a few of the topics, which is pretty good. Kind of gives us an idea on what people are listening to and what they like from us. You can always find the Not Another Sports Podcast wherever you get your downloads or your streams at, for Anchor.fm, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio.
We're everywhere.
Pandora, Audible, everywhere. Tune in. This was a lot of fun. We need to do more episodes like this because, it's really just us BSing, but sometimes it's fun not to have to be on a current topic, just to have fun and
absolutely
roll with it.
Gotta break it up every once in a while.
So with that, I am Jason.
I'm David.
And we will talk with you next time.
Have a good one.